H2O Network, purveyors of passion, seeking to expand human consciousness from the deep depths of the universe of your soul.
Greetings, family. Welcome to the H2O Network. This is your host, Dia Nunez, broadcasting live from New York City. I'd like to welcome everyone in the chat room, everyone on the phone lines, and everyone who will be listening to this via the archives later on. Family, make sure that you go to the H2O Network profile page and click that iTunes button so you can get everything that you have missed and all of the fantabulous things that will be going down in 2012. Excuse me, little allergies today. Have to wet my palate. So make sure that you click that iTunes button so you catch up on everything and all the fab things that will be happening in 2012. Also, family, you know that I'm percolating on Facebook, so type into your search engine DIANUNEZ. That's me. I have two profiles, friend in both, and also we have the HO Network fan page. So as shows are percolating and going on, you can post your questions, and I'll be checking back and forth as we broadcast. You know I'm on Twitter, tweeting with all of the esoteric, paranormal, shamanistic, academic crazies who are on Twitter doing their thing, and also all of the awesome authors, if you will. And also we're on YouTube, Google+. I'm telling you, I am literally percolating in the internet sphere. Family, this is part 2, and before I tell you who the part 2 is with, make sure if you'd like to call in. I know that it's early in the wee hours of the morning, 3 a.m. in New York City, but anyone else around the world, if you're wide awake and want to chat with us and call through Skype, you can call 917-889-7207. That's 917-889-7207. And make sure you press 1 on your keypad. So I know that you want to be heard. I'm excited about this morning's show, percolating on the burner at 3 a.m. in New York City. But let me tell you something. It is so worth it because we are doing part 2 to the Saturn death cult with Troy Mclachlan. And I'm very excited to have him back on. I mean, family, there's so much information when you type into your search engine SaturnDeathCult.com. That's SaturnDeathCult.com. And also you can go to Amazon Books and download his Saturn Death Cult information on Kindle and things of this nature. So much information, so many connections that I've made in my own mind. You know, you always get excited when you make these connections, and I have most definitely been doing so within the past couple of weeks. And let me just give you, for people who are listening to this show, and it may be your first, make sure that you go back and find part 1, and then, you know, you'll be able to put the pieces together. But, this is a really fascinating website, tons of information. It's the mythology as natural history and human history as a cult ritual. And what Troy really talks about is the Saturn death cult, which is an investigation into ancient planetary upheavals that heralded the birth and destruction of a fabled golden age, following which mankind then degenerated into the obsessive pursuit of wealth, power, and through the perverted horrors, slavery, child sacrifice, and mass murder. His website discusses the disturbing occult origins of the planet Saturn and its influences on our march towards the terrifying elitist agenda of justifiable man-made global cleansing. Excuse me, it is 3 a.m. in the morning, so I get a little tongue-tied. But this, like I said, once again, website very fascinating, tons of information. You have to literally let down your guard, open up your box, because there's a lot of information, if you will, that will challenge the way one thinks. But if you are one that opens your box, you will be able to make the connections. Wonderful website, and I'm honored to have Troy back on the HO Network. Thank you for hanging out with us this evening for you.
Hey, dear. Look, thanks so much for having me back. We had a great time last time, and it's just brilliant to be back with you and your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you, I got so much feedback on the last show. People are like, whoa, blown away. a lot of emails, a lot of percolation going on as far as the Saturn death cult, a lot of people making connections, if you will, and it's fantabulous. And I've been making connections myself. There's so much that you could literally do a 20-piece series on your information alone, because you literally go through the different ages and so many different genres of information. And due to that fact, Troy, we're going to jump around, because let me tell you, I could literally talk to you all morning about this wonderful piece of media artifact that you brought forth to humanity.
Well, thanks so much for the intro there, dear. No, let's get into it. It is a vast subject, so let's go see where the flow takes us.
Absolutely. Well, let me just, the last time we talked about basically the ancient skies and the orbit of Saturn, and basically how the ancient, cosmos look like, and the shift that took place and things of this nature. I have to say, as I was doing some research on Saturn and the symbology of Saturn, I found it very interesting that when you look at the symbology of Saturn and its reference to the harvest or time of reaping, I found that to be quite interesting, and I'm going to tell you why, because I equated it to another symbol or individual, if you will, the Grim Reaper. And to be quite honest, I actually saw a picture of Saturn with the man holding a tool that looked like the Grim Reaper. How ironic is that? And I also found interesting that the symbol as a cross, if you will, which is another fascinating attribute of the symbology of Saturn. What do you say about that?
Well, the Grim Reaper is directly related to Saturn, and particularly to the various doomsday events that are associated with Saturn being knocked from his throne in the cosmos, according to the ancient mythologies. But the scythe is a very integral part of Saturn's, the god Saturn's personality. In Roman statues, in Roman mythology in particular, after all, Rome was originally called Saturnalia, which meant they directly associated themselves with the god Saturn and not the god Jupiter, who supplanted Saturn at a later date. But Saturn definitely is associated with the scythe, and because Saturn is really the Roman manifestation of the god Kronos, the Greek version of Saturn, and Kronos is the god of time. Saturn is associated with death in mythology, because at the end of the day, time eats everything. Everything falls before time in terms of the experience of people on this planet. But also at the same in the same place, Saturn being the original sun of mythology, that is the life-giving energy that bathes this planet in ancient times before the current sun that we see today. Saturn is also very much associated with the concept of bringing forth the harvests, which sustain life. So there is that kind of paradox of personality when it comes to Saturn. He is destructive, and yet he is also energy-giving and provides the various energies needed for the harvest on this planet. But for your listeners, this all goes back to the idea that mythology tells us that a large planetary object, a sun in its own right, once sat way above the North Pole of the Earth in the celestial realms, where it shone as a sun in its own right, and that this body, this celestial body, was in fact the planet Saturn, which has now been expelled down through the ages into the outer realms of the solar system. And that really is the basis of what I've written in the Saturn Death Cult, is an investigation into the actual natural origins of Saturn as the god, but also what's come down to us in symbolic terms for what Saturn actually means, and how that has, a lot of it has actually been corrupted by various thought processes and so on.
Absolutely. And, another thing that I found very interesting when it came to the actual symbol of Saturn with the symbol of Christ, if you will, how ironic is it that Saturn was the old sun of the cosmos, and here you have this figure, this Christ figure called the Sun, S-O-N, and then you have Saturn, the Sun, S-U-N, and the symbology of bringing forth the harvest. How interesting is it that you have this is just from my perspective, and I hope that I don't offend anyone, but this is just how I see it, that religion can be used as a tool, if you will, in the negative perspective, to bring forth the harvest of the energy of human beings. Because if you don't know the history of what one is worshiping, you can actually be used as a battery to fuel other malevolent rituals that take place here on planet Earth. And I just find it interesting that, the symbology with the whole religious symbology, and the fact that this domain here on planet Earth, from a large perspective, it's many things. It's like this duality of good and evil, fighting each other. But from the powers that be, it's interesting that it is also the domain of the ritual of death, of the bringing forth the harvest of blood. That's fascinating, Troy.
Yeah, particularly bringing in the Christian traditions. What I try to show in the Saturn Death Cult is that there are people who are extremely aware of the archetypes that have been infused into the human consciousness, and I'm talking about humanity as a whole, as a result of these absolutely catastrophic events that mythology tells us happen, this loss of the planet Saturn as our original sun, the ensuing chaos, the emergence of the current sun, the role that Jupiter played in knocking Saturn from its place up in the north. They've created extremely deep-rooted archetypes within human subconscious, and I have to stress this is very, very much a case for the whole of humanity, that there is a corporate psyche involved here. And when I wrote Saturn Death Cult, I often mention illuminated ones down through the history, and these are people who have cottoned on to the ability to use these archetypes for various nefarious reasons, means by which to control other people. This is not to say that within certain other religious traditions, and I am talking about the major world religions, and I'll concentrate on Christianity because that's very much my own culture, and what I grew up in and so on. And so therefore I know a little bit about it. It's fair to assume that the biblical scriptures also utilize these deep-seated archetypes. And when you were talking about harvest and so on, it's an integral part of the Christian message. The what's called the barley harvest, followed by the wheat harvest, followed by the grape harvest. These are all used as metaphors for the promised resurrections that Christians often talk about in terms of their religion. But Christianity is fraught in itself with a schism between those who understand the message of debt forgiveness to those who have, and I'm sorry, dear, I'm going to have to say it, but there's a death cult element in Christianity, and it is those that believe that those who do not believe their version of the Bible are on their way to hell for eternity in a form of death, of the eternal torture. And it's precisely this kind of misinterpretation, whether it's biblical scripture or ancient mythology, that scares me.